So we have a hierarchy in automation. We say it usually starts with white knuckles. When you hang on to a roller coaster bar, when you're going on a huge roller coaster, your knuckles go white. They go white because they drain blood. They drain blood because you are tense. So things in life that make you tense should be the first items of attack for automation, right? And the next items of attack should be anything to do with uncertainty, things that I'm uncertain about, I'm vague about, I'm not sure. The third one should be for improving personal productivity. And the last one should be to make me more creative than I was yesterday.
Welcome to another episode of the peopleHum interview series. I'm your host Akanksha Kulkarni, and let's begin with a quick introduction of peopleHum. peopleHum is an end-to-end, one-view integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award for HCM that is specifically built for crafted employee experiences and the future of work. We run the peopleHum blog and the video channel, which receives upwards of 200,000 visitors a year and publish around 2 interviews with well-known names globally every month. And now for our guest, Ramesh Srinivasan is the CEO of IE, a consulting organization. Having started his corporate career in sales, he was head of operations in Singapore for HCL Technologies for over 5 years before he started his own consulting firm in 1997. Ramesh draws from his rich experience of managing multicultural, cross-geographical teams for his coaching and speaking sessions. We are extremely happy and honored to have him on our interview series today. Welcome, Ramesh. We are happy to have you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, Ramesh, I would just like to start with the interview, and the first question I would like to ask you is, can you tell us a little bit about your journey so far that brought you?
Okay, so this is my 39th year in business, and I worked for only 17 of those years in corporate in 3 companies, selling computers, looking after major accounts from 1981 to 1997, right? And the last 5 years I was in Singapore with HCL Technologies, managing teams for systems integration and technology across multiple countries in Southeast Asia. So that was my corporate life. In 97, I started IE, which is my own firm. I initially started with training, then got on to executive coaching about 2005 onwards, and then moved on to corporate speaking, and all the time I was teaching as well. I am a visiting faculty at IIM Bangalore and at a couple of other institutes, but more regularly at IIM Bangalore on product management. So teaching, coaching, speaking, consulting, training, that's what keeps me busy. And it's been a good journey because I come from the IT background, so a lot of my clients are in IT. And after the 2008 debacle in the economy, I started looking for clients outside IT to sort of de-risk my business, and that has been a very rewarding experience. I now got clients in hospitality, healthcare, pharma, manufacturing, of course. So it's a much better portfolio than it was 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
That's great. So moving on to our next question, I just wanted to ask, you have a strong belief that people are the core of successful organization. Mm-hmm. So how do we make sure that, that strong belief that, our employees are, they are engaged in their work?
Yeah, I know we hear this word engagement quite a bit, right from my days to even now. Engagement is actually a synonym of energy, So basically, if we can get the employees energized, then it works. Okay. And there are a couple of ways to do that, which I follow in my consulting and in the advice and coaching that I give to people. One of the things I talk about is that, see, when you work for a company, you get wages, you get salary, right? So supposing I were to sack you from the company and take you back to do the same job, but this time on fees and not on wages, which means you get paid only if you deliver.
Oh, yeah.
The question is, Will you make more as fees or will you make more as wages?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I keep pushing employees and I keep pushing CEOs to ask employees on are they on the fee mode or not? Are they thinking? Are they thinking? And if they're going to make more money in fees than in wages, then they are improving. In fact, my suggestion has always been that every Monday morning you must update your resume, right?
Yeah.
And if you have nothing to update it with, you want to have a friend or somebody like that give you a nicely well administered kick. Yeah. Now you just wasted a week. And when you have multiple weeks, when you have nothing to actually update your resume with, I think you'll start seeing the point and do something in order to keep the resume going, and therefore your fees improving and overtaking your wages. Right now, when you can create that kind of an atmosphere, you find that the energy is quite high, and people do come back, you know, to work on new projects, to collaborate with other teams, etc. The other big issue in engagement is not being able to tell your people on what the purpose is. Why are we doing what we do? Right?
Yeah.
A lot of the times you keep doing it because it's by habit or you're doing it from memory, kind of a thing, right? So I always call it. Can you spend at least 20% of your time, 15 to 20% of your time, using a compass rather than using the clock? Like the compass shows direction, and the clock keeps showing that the quarter is ending or month is ending or revenue is coming or not coming, kind of a thing. And we are running, all the time after the clock. And when you run after the clock, you are driven. But when you run because the compass tells you to run, then you're propelled. So getting propelled is better than getting driven. And therefore, and this compass clock is something Stephen Covey put out many years ago. And I love that concept. So at least, I would say at least half a day in a week, I think you should sit together and say, wait a minute, where are we? Where are we going? If we are going there, why are we here?
Right.
Kind of a discussion. And that, I think, is a great way to engage with people. And unfortunately, the higher they go up in the hierarchy, the lesser and lesser I see them having these conversations. They actually get completely sucked into what's happening on a day-to-day basis and do almost nothing to revisit the purpose question, right? And I would say the third thing I normally tell people when they talk about engagement is that you got to let people feel good about what they have achieved, rather than make them feel good because others are applauding you. So I always call this the difference between success and achievement. Success is what the world thinks of you, but achievement is what you think of yourself, right? So if there is some way in which the people can be made to feel good about who they are, and they can actually be told, is it what you want to become? Okay, let me see if I can help you become what you want to become. Rather than, you work hard, in 3 years, you can become a team lead. And becoming a team lead in this company is a big deal, okay? So go and work at it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe this guy doesn't want to become a team lead at all. You're just pushing him all over the place to do this, right? So we have our own reward systems, we have our own recognition, we have our designations, we have our cabin size, we have our team size, we have all kinds of rubbish stuff like that in companies. And then we say, go and achieve it because that's your life's mission, right? And we haven't had a chat with the people on what it's really here. Why do people get up and come to work? Beat traffic and come to work. Why do they come? It's quite an adventure. It's almost like climbing Mount Everest every single day, and they still manage it. And so there must be a much bigger purpose than just getting a bigger cabin or a bigger team size or a designation like team lead or whatever. So that thing, I think, is the other big missing piece in engagement. So those are some of the more common things we talk about to leaders, and also discover what that guy wants, to do, irrespective of whether it's aligned with your purpose or not. There is this huge worshipping of the purpose even after you got it. Now, purpose is for the whole company, purpose is for the whole team, or for what you want to do with the customer. But by chasing your purpose, he may be chasing his sub-purpose. We need to respect that. And that's a kind of conversation I don't see too many managers happy about having. They're not even comfortable. They're not trained for it. We train managers to do appraisals, give feedback and all that, but we never train them to have a heart-to-heart purpose chat. And why would I talk to a manager who himself has no purpose in life?
Yeah, right.
Right.
That's correct. So moving on to our next question. So there's this quote, right? Managers follow rules while leaders discover routes. So
Yeah.
can you elaborate a little bit on that, like from your experience, from your work? What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, that's actually the core of my work. I do a lot of work in this area, which is distinguishing between managers and leaders. You know, and I always say managers manage resources,
Hmm.
but leaders manage people. Okay, and they really don't care whether you're a resource who is delivering, who is useful to the company and all that, right? Also, managers are very worried about conformity. These are the rules. This is you need to be compliant. This is a standard operating procedure. We have a manual on that, and just read that and be there, right? And I think that's quite overrated. uh, Conforming to something is easy, and you'll get all. In my childhood, we had a dog called Jimmy, and you call him to do things, he will do it. I once asked my uncle, why does Jimmy do this? And my uncle said, he really has no choice. And I said, what happens if one day Jimmy turns around to me and says, Ramesh, you know what? I'm sick of what you're asking me to do. I really don't want to do this anymore, right? So my uncle said, don't worry, the dog will never do that. Now I find that a lot of managers are very comfortable hiring Jimmies. I think even during the interview stage, they check whether this guy is a Jimmy or not. In fact, they try throwing sticks and check whether he goes and fetches them, even during the interview, right?
Right.
And if he does that, they hire him immediately. They love these kind of people. I'm told that when you join the US Marines, they actually give you a manual. The first page of the manual says there are 4 ways to do anything: the right way, the wrong way, the Marine way, and my way. Okay.
Oh,
And they actually look for the guys who work the last way, which is my way. I know the right way. I don't want to know the wrong way. The Marine way is already written in all our manuals. But my dear friend, now that you're seeking to join the US Marines, what's your way of doing things? That's
yeah.
what I want to hear. And leaders relentlessly ask this question: what's your way? What's your way? They don't give people their way. They keep asking, what's your way? What's your way of doing any of these things? And we have in OB, in organizational behavior, we have these words: exploration and exploitation. So typically managers hire to exploit the guy's past. So if the guy has already worked on a similar technology, similar project for 6 years, they love him. They hire him immediately so that he'll hit the ground running, right?
Yeah.
Whereas a leader will say, yeah, okay, you're good at that. I understand you already done that well. Now what else? Now what else? Now I know you're good at that. I'm not going to test you on that. But how are you going to build on that? And that's called exploration. And believe me, every employee joins a job to explore, not to get exploited.
Right. Right.
Right? So when you give him the chance to explore, right, then he stops being Jimmy, he stops conforming, he's able to do his way of doing things. And I always say, if your team has a lot of yes men, I say go and hire a maverick. If your team has a lot of mavericks, hire a yes man. We really need this kind of mixture. And a manager actually wants everyone who looks alike, thinks alike, right, speaks alike, dresses alike, right? In fact, you hear a lot of meetings, managers saying, he can do it, why can't you? No,
Yeah.
no, that's a very stupid comment, and that's what managers do. Whereas leaders will say, hey, let's talk to you about what's really coming in the way of what we agreed to do. Maybe you don't want to do it, which is fine by me. Then what do you actually want to do? Let me see if I can use you for that. You see? Now, so they make routes with what they have. They don't make people to somehow follow rules.
Yeah.
You don't cut people to size to fit the bed. You alter the bed to fit the people, right?
Right.
And that's the big difference between being a manager and being a leader. And this is my number one mission, is to try and get. I'm not here to make everybody into a leader, but I'm particular about those who want to be a leader being given a chance to be a leader. I think with that, my mission is accomplished. It's. I think it would be a bit of a disaster if all 8 billion on earth have become leaders.
Yeah. Right.
But the guys who are wanting to be a leader, who have the aptitude, and they're not finding ways to find them those routes and help them find more routes to sustain themselves as a leader. That's been my job. And that's why I put that up.
Similar to also like if you keep on doing something, you're going to get the same results always. If
Absolutely.
you don't change it, the results are not going to change.
Correct. We call it managerial insanity.
Okay. Thank
Doing
you
the
for
same thing,
telling.
doing the same thing again and again and again, expecting a different result each time. That's called managerial insanity.
Thank you for that term. I didn't know that. So, I would like to go to the next question. As a
Yeah.
leader, how can you ensure that you have a diverse team? How can you make sure that your team is not, like you just said, like it's not the same? You have other different people.
So the word diverse and diversity has been used in many contexts, right? But I'm going to use it in one context, which is diverse in opinion. Okay. Now, diverse in gender, race, yeah, sure, all that is given, and a lot of people have talked a lot about it. But I think once you seek diverse opinions, the other diversity also comes in automatically, right?
Yeah.
So we had this guy, Alfred P. Sloan, after whom the Sloan School of Management is named in MIT, who was famous for saying that a gentleman, now that we are in complete agreement on this topic, let's go back and generate some disagreement and revisit this topic to understand it better. You know, the greatest barrier to communication on earth is agreement. If all of us agree on everything,
Hmm.
we will see a very silent world,
Yeah.
right? And when a team is very silent, and I've sat through team meetings where there is a monologue by the manager and one or two of his so-called chamchas now and then speak up, and that's it, meeting is over. And you could attend the next 8, 10, 40 meetings and it's the same thing. Now, a meeting where everybody is screaming and wanting to have his say and disagrees with each other and comes out smiling with hands over each other's shoulders and have a coffee together. Now that's the team I love. Now that's the diversity we want, right?
Right.
So what we want to do as a manager and therefore a leader is to celebrate differences. When you see someone in your team who's different from this guy, you don't say, "Oh God, why do I get punished like this?" Don't say that. Just say, "Wow, this guy is different. Let me see why he's different and why is he thinking," and give a play to his difference. Allow him to exhibit his difference in a completely different way if required. Jim Collins says, in a bus, you go to a bus stand and you want to go to Vijayawada, there will be a guy running around saying Vijayawada, 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 Vijayawada. So he says good companies are like that guy. They have decided where to go and they hire passengers to take you there.
Right.
But he says what great companies do, they actually hire the best of passengers, fill the bus with them, and ask them, guys, where do you want to go today?
Yeah.
Now that kind of guts is very difficult to see among managers and leaders, right? Now, when you have that, you really have a diverse team, because obviously not all of them in the bus are going to say Vijayawada. I mean, each one is going to say something. I mean, in a family, we can't even agree on which restaurant to visit or what food to order on Swiggy. Okay,
Yeah.
and that's the fun of being in a family. So you don't go kill a family member because she keeps disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
Right? And neither do we punish them saying, why don't you think like me? Why don't we all think alike? Why don't we just go Chinese? That would be very wrong to do, because this variety is what gives us the entire spice. And we were all very good. We were all. I'm also an instructor in Lego blocks. Lego serious play is a way of using Lego blocks to build corporate models, right? And one of the experiments we did is with corporate executives and then with children. The same experiment. We told the corporate executives, close your eyes, pick any 5 Lego pieces at random and make a duck. Okay. I've done this with hundreds of corporate executives. I haven't got a duck from a corporate executive until today. Because there are 5 random pieces he picks. He says, oh, Ramesh, how can I make a duck with this? Oh, no, it's not possible. Can I open my eyes and pick the right pieces? I'll make a duck for you, I promise, and all that. Now, I've done this with 7, 8, 9-year-old kids. I tell them, close your eyes, put your hand into the bucket, pick any 5 pieces at random and make a duck. You know what? Over 50% of them make a duck. I give them a minute. I say, have you finished? She says, yeah, I finished. So I say, is this a duck? She says, yeah, it's a duck. I said, are you sure this is a duck? She says, yeah, this is a beak, this is a body, and that's the tail. You know what she's saying? I see a duck here. If you don't see a duck, it's your problem, not mine. When we were 6 years, 7 years, we were all like that. Somewhere we grew up and stopped being so good about what we think we know and what we think we want. And then we started become conformists. We get into a company and say, how do you do things around here? And then start doing the way they were doing. And you forgot my duck. And the adults could never make a duck. You know why the adults could never make a duck? Because they wanted to make a duck that others will agree is a duck.
Yeah.
And that's when diversity commits suicide. The minute you have that kind of a thing, where I need agreement, where I need acceptance from others, when that happens, diversity goes for a 6. So I always say, when you build a team, have people disagree, have people come, and that diverse opinions actually opens out. I've done so many projects just because we got diverse opinions. The first idea didn't look anything like the final thing we did, but that was a winner because we allowed everybody to participate. All of them had a say, and people to disagree without getting fired. That diversity is a leader's, great skill if he can do that. In fact, Oscar Wilde says disobedience is the only reason why man has progressed this far.
That's so. I guess we need to teach the coming generation to be a bit disobedient, not to be completely, but to be in their opinions.
Actually, I think that's your next question, and I believe they are good. They're really good. Not as bad as we were. We were very obeying, our generation.
Yeah. So yeah, as you said, this is like, the next question I just asked. So so you have a do you have a they have a different take on workplace culture. So you think that workplace cultures have evolved a little bit better because of the new entrepreneurs that are coming?
100%. I think so. I think, I have a definition of a genius. In 2020, the definition of a genius is were you born in India or China? Check, right? Are you below 25 years of age? Check. Okay, are you alive? Check. If these 3 are true, you're a genius. Growing up the last 25 years in one of these 2 countries is in itself a huge amount of experience compared to a 22-year-old in Germany, a 22-year-old in Australia or in US. A 22-year-old in India and China has gone through so much in the last 22 years. That's because the country itself is going through so much, and all of that somehow seeps into the skin, into the brains of these people. In fact, if I wave a magic wand and make myself into a 20-year-old, right? I probably can't take the pressure of being a 20-year-old for even one day.
Right.
What he or she is going through is such terrific things. And we just need to give them the free hand. In China, we have a proverb. We say, give a good horse its head, meaning let the good horse run the way it runs. Right? And we need to really do that with the new age entrepreneurs. I'll tell you, my disappointment is whether startups or the new age guys who join companies. Majority of them are willing to obey, willing to be Jimmies. That's my disappointment. Right? Because they come from a different world. They have a completely different way of thinking things. A simple thing like today's children within 2-3 years after birth are able to figure out buttons on a phone.
Yeah.
Now, nobody taught them that. Nobody ran a course. Nobody showed them the manual, but they're able to do it. So they come wired differently, and we need to use them that way, right? And that's not happening. In the workplace, we are forcing them to follow cultures which were invented 20 years ago, 25 years ago. But when these people are let loose, for example, on an annual day cultural function, or when one of them is allowed to run a project or do a presentation her own way, you can see the difference. You can immediately see the difference, right? But most managers say, yeah, that's fine. No, come back, and follow this manual kind of a thing. So I don't blame the managers. He's doing his job, okay? I don't blame the organizations because they don't like disruption. But I do blame the youngsters. They need to believe more in themselves. They need to believe more in their own legitimacy, that the world belongs to them. It does. I can tell you, I respect anybody younger than me. They are super. They are genius, right? And when I heard about this okay boomer thing, where you tell an elder to shut up, I said, oh, let's get more of that. Let's get more of that, So there's this Greek philosopher called Heraclitus who said, you never step into the same river twice. What he meant was the rivers moved on.
Yeah.
So similarly, when I try to tell a youngster, when I was your age, I deserve a okay boomer. Because the world has changed. There is no way a 25-year-old today can live the way I lived when I was 25 years old. No way. I mean, you can't even think about it. The world has changed, right? But these people need to take that, and I think therefore whatever changes have happened because of the new workforce.
Correct.
And that's brilliant. They just need to go a little more with it. They got to get a little more radical, a little more disruptive, if you like, about changing the culture. And yeah, maybe they don't want to be disrespectful. Yeah, I agree with all that, but I'm sure they're clever enough to do this without actually banging up people. I'm sure they can do that. You people, you look young enough to do that. You should go do that, right?
Yeah.
And the other reason is, there's this guy called Jack Welch who ran GE. He said if the change outside is greater than the change inside, the end is near. So there are a lot of the middle managers who are in their 40s and 50s who are holding up the status quo, even though the world outside is changing a lot.
Yeah.
Right? And if you don't change faster than the changes outside, you will die. Right? And at least in the interest of protecting this organization and protecting yourselves and your careers, you people need to move fast, in my opinion. But whatever has happened is beautiful. I think it's brilliant. What I see in startups, what I see in the way they conduct meetings, the way they write proposals, presentations, I love that. And I think we need more of that. But the problem comes when they come for a VC presentation or when they come for a customer presentation. They've fallen into the IBM mold or into the, which is very disappointing. We shouldn't be doing that.
Right. So the transition from, being like a completely MNC company to being a startup company, that has changed a lot, and that's what, bringing out the change in people as well and organizations.
Yes. In fact, like I say, for leaders, if a leader cannot give his personal signature on every day's activity, he has failed. Similarly, if a younger person that I bring into the team hasn't brought her style, her way of working, and her signature onto the job, right? Of course, she's failed, but the people who hired her have failed big time. They have failed bigger. When you get that kind of an energy into the room, you really need to make use of it fully. And even in a country like India, I mean, elsewhere I've seen this really bad. Okay, it's very bad. They don't respect youngsters at all. That's why I keep saying India and China. Here, in both these countries, I have seen there's a fair amount of recognition that's there for youngsters, right? But they really can go further with what they've got. And any change they make, I'll tell you right away, I'm willing to obey and follow, right? Any youngster. They're brilliant, they're clever, they're good. And my most energy in my life comes from when I visit campuses every year on behalf of companies to recruit. I mean, it's super. You come back really rejuvenated and feel great about the future.
Right. I love that answer completely, and I would like to go to next question.
Sure.
How do you think technology and AI, especially, have changed the workplace? And what is the function? What is their function in an organization?
So I'm a technology guy, and I'm a bit of a bitter and disappointed man at the end of 40 years in technology. We have done very little to change the world. When I started my career in 1981 and I was selling mainframes for 9 years, I thought, by God, we're going to change the world. I thought by the time I retire, even human beings are not going to look like human beings. I mean, I had some real weird futuristic scenarios. But unfortunately, it's largely remained the same, right? Not much has happened. Two major technologies in my lifetime, which probably have changed the businesses and lives. One is, of course, the internet, and other is the web. The cell phone. One is the internet, the web, and the other is a cell phone, right? These two. And if you take examples from these two, you can see that unless it touches a majority of the people on earth, a technology is not worth talking about. In my opinion, the only two other technologies worth talking about other than cell phone and web is electricity and the wheel.
The?
Wheel.
Okay.
The wheel is the first technology. Second is electricity. Third
Okay.
is the World Wide Web, and fourth is cell phone. And one thing common among all four is that they touched almost everybody on Earth. Now, one of the problems I have with even the most exciting technologies we talk about in IT companies is that it's more exclusive than inclusive, right? It's not really touching too many people, right? And the first thing, automation, for example, is a very good thing to improve human dignity. For example, there's still a lot of work that humans simply shouldn't be doing, and automation should straight away attack that.
Right.
Right? Now, I don't see that kind of a plan. There is automation for automation's sake. So we have a hierarchy in automation. We say it usually starts with white knuckles. You know, when you hang on to a roller coaster bar, when you're going on a huge roller coaster, your knuckles go white. They go white because they drain blood. They drain blood because you are tense. So things in life that make you tense should be the first items of attack for automation, right? And the next items of attack should be anything to do with uncertainty, things that I'm uncertain about. I'm vague about, I'm not sure. The third one should be for improving personal productivity. And the last one should be to make me more creative than I was yesterday. This is making me see more. So I think somewhere we've forgotten that. So some of us who have actually gone back to books and studied information science and actually read articles by Gregory Bates and people like that, you see he's given a hierarchy on how to do this. But when I talk to the people in technology, nobody's even read these things. I mean, they have no idea where to start. They start where it makes money, where it gets money, and then get moving and start changing though. For example, Bateson says data is the very bottom line of using technology, followed by information, followed by knowledge, followed by wisdom. And he says technology can actually produce wisdom. But I was so disappointed when a few years ago we came back to big data. I said, that's a huge step back.
Right.
Why are we coming back to managing data? Because that's what we used to do when I started my career. We're coming back to managing data, right? We haven't even moved to the knowledge and wisdom part, right? One of the other things that's happening, therefore, is this startup culture, and that's happening. Most of the good ideas in automation and AI is actually happening with smaller entrepreneurs. And that's actually a sign of what we call the gig economy, right? There's a whole lot of people who actually look at the large organizations, their way of working, their ideas, and they say, hey, not for me. I'm in a hurry. I need to go explore this by myself, and I'm not getting enough opportunity to do that. So let me go away and do that, right? So they need a lot of education. They need a lot of direction on which ones to pick up first, which one to how to progress it next. For example, unless you have actually conquered all of automation, there's no point dabbling in AI.
Correct.
But automation itself has got a huge world waiting there for you, and we aren't doing enough of that. So there's this guy called Kevin Kelly, who's once an editor of the Wired magazine. He's in a wonderful book called Out of Control. So he says there are only two kinds of things on earth, and I love this statement. He says there are only two kinds of things on earth: those that are made and those that are born.
Yeah.
So there are a whole lot of us who are born, and then there are a whole lot of things that are made, like this laptop, this table, right? He says the problem with technology is it's on a futile journey of making things that are made to behave like things that are born, and things that are born to behave like things that are made. You know what we are saying? We actually want to make humans as dumb as possible, and want to make my table as intelligent as possible. So now when I come near the table says, hi, Ramesh, and I'm so pleased about it. Right? And then I'm saying, Ramesh himself doesn't have to think of anything. He just walks in and everything will happen for him. Hey, that's not the role of technology. Charles Lamb said many years ago that it's a good walking stick, but a bad crutch. What he meant was, if you're already doing something well, technology will help you do it better. If you aren't doing something at all, technology can't do it for you.
Right.
So in AI, something happens faster than you can do it yourself. It searches in areas that you can't go search for, but you know that it needs to search in those areas. You see?
Yeah.
That's the important part of being in technology. And I think we are not doing enough of the. One of my biggest pet peeves with startups is that when they make the presentation to me, 95% of them can't tell me what problem they are solving. They can tell me about the technology, they can tell me about the feature set, they can tell me, but I said, so why is the world missing you? Why are they going to go celebrate Diwali early because you came?
Right.
They can't answer that question until today. And I've been doing this for 20 years with startups, right? And they get pissed off with me. I scold them for their answers, and then they go back to technology, right? So I see the same pattern in automation and AI, frankly. And yeah, they are powerful ideas, but I think there is a way to do it, and the patience to do it in the right way is probably, in my opinion, yes. I'm again saying I'm a little disappointed with that.
I absolutely agree with your analogy and your answer to this. So, to wrap up this interview, lastly, I would ask you, do you have any important sound bites that you want to leave our audience with?
Yeah, the three I normally give. I do a lot of programs for first-time managers who become managers, who get to manage people for the first time. And so one of the things I tell them is, like in India, we have a goddess for wealth, Lakshmi. And in Greece, they have a goddess for distraction. She's called Acrasia. And our cell phones are the temples of Acrasia to start with, for example. And so is most of the technologies we have. So are the standard operating procedures in company. So are dumb managers. So are completely Jimmy-like colleagues. No, these are all Acrasia. You're going to find a lot of them in your life, right? So beware of them. Distractions are galore. I think maybe after the time of Akbar, we have a chance to take over the world. I think the chances come back. Now you allow Acrasia to come into your life, you're in trouble. She will take away all that you have, your energy, your resources, your money, and we will achieve nothing, right? So I would say beware of Acrasia. And I would say you must be excited about the difference between what you are and what you can be. There's a big gap always, and I'm hoping there is always for all of you a gap between what you are and what you can be. And getting excited by that gap rather than getting worried about it. Right?
Yeah.
Aristotle had a name for that gap. He called it enteleki. In Greek, he called it enteleki. So enteleki is actually the gap, and that's what I do in coaching. What my entire purpose of coaching is to bridge the gap between performance and potential.
Yeah.
And I used to do it pretty leisurely, but I think we have reached a stage where it's become a little urgent. We really need to get that gap going fast, right? Who I am, who I can be. That gap needs to be bridged. And I think that's something that should worry you. And if it worries you, you're a winner already. Who I am versus who I want to be, who I can be.
Yeah.
That's the second thing I would recommend anybody who's in working life in India to worry about, right? And the third thing is a beautiful French word. It's called praxis. Praxis actually means the gap between thinking and doing. Yeah, it's actually a Latin origin word used by French. The French even have a proverb for it. The French actually say there are only two kinds of failures: those who thought and never did, and those who did and never thought. Yeah. So this thinking-doing gap is to me another worrying thing that. Of course, it's also got Acrasia in it because she's the one who takes you deep into thinking and gets you lost there, or gets you deep into doing and gets you lost there. But I think I'm saying something else. I'm saying when I'm doing something, can I trace back to the actual thinking that went behind it, and vice versa, right? I think that will make our people stand out from the rest of the world. Currently, we are having a huge amount of pressures in all the countries. And I think this COVID kind of thing has leveled everybody, which is beautiful. So we are actually starting from base zero. And
Yeah.
so if we just show some good habits, boy, we are the winners, right?
Right.
And which is why the next 10 years, at least for me, I'm very excited. Once we drive this COVID out, I think it's just a question of how we come out of this beautifully. And to me, the thinking doing gap being bridged, being worried about the gap between who you are and who you can be, and not allowing any other distraction to actually take you away from what you can be.
Yeah.
This can be done, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So even that, if you're excited about that journey also, who you are and who you want to be,
absolutely.
that would make it more beautiful. And also, things of doing it with quality and not quantity.
That's correct.
That will help.
That's where the thinking doing gap comes, because once you sit back to think, what Stephen Covey calls sharpening your axe, you go back now and then and check if your axe is sharp enough and come back to cut wood. Don't just keep cutting wood because somebody's paying you for it.
Thank you so much. I completely enjoyed the interview. I loved your your thoughts, your views, your analogies, and that really connected with all of us. And I'm sure like our audience are gonna love it too. So thank you, Ramesh, for your time and your views, and thank you for giving us such a enjoyable and interesting time.
Thank you. I enjoyed it myself. Thank you very much. Thanks, Akaksha. All the best.